Hello everyone, my name is Miss Priya Lanka. Today we are going to study Business Studies, NCERT textbook, chapter number 6, Staffing. The next important aspect of staffing is the concept of selection. Selection is basically a process of identifying and choosing the best person out of the number of prospective candidates. So far, we have seen till the point of recruitment that we have identified the source, and once we have identified the source, then we try to attract or invite the applicants to apply for jobs in our organization. The next is, from all the applicants that we have received, we have to now identify the best person who is capable of performing the task that we are thinking about. Now, if you see, selection basically is a negative process because we have a list of applicants and we have to remove what is not desired at that particular point of time. So, obviously, it is a negative process. Also, in this process, the candidates have to take tests and interviews. That means not only the analysis happens at a qualitative level, but also there is quantitative assessment to see or to understand how appropriate that employee is for that particular task. The process starts right from screening of application to the point where the offer is made to the employee. And as well, the last step which we should never forget is the acceptance and joining of candidate. We shall be discussing more in detail in the further slides. It involves judgment about performance potential of the candidate. That means right now, in the present scenario, the person who is hiring or the employer should be able to make a sound judgment as to how this employee is going to behave in a future course of action with respect to the environment that exists within the organization. So, of course, it is very important and it has to be critically understood and viewed, and the assessment should be made properly so that in future you cannot go back and say, okay, fine, at that particular time when we were doing the interview, we thought that this is what the outcome would be, but once the task has been performed, you cannot go back and say, no, this is not what the outcome we had thought. So, whatever the judgment that is being made at the time of selection is very crucial with respect to the role of the employee in the organization. Let us now understand the process of selection. Step 1 is preliminary screening. In this step, a quick scanning is done of all the applications that have been received by the management, and the unqualified or unfit job seekers as per the application forms that have been provided are eliminated. That means based on the basic requirement that is being provided in the resume or in the CVs, you quickly scan whether that person is actually going to be useful for the task in future or he is a misfit. So quickly the elimination is done at this particular stage. Also, sometimes preliminary interviews are conducted to reject misfits for reasons other than those mentioned in the application forms. Certain basic reasons would be there, and based on which, for example, maybe you are having the requirement of the position is there in one particular area, and maybe the person, the interviewer, has certain basic expectations from the interviewee. Now, maybe the interviewee does not want to be placed in that particular area, or maybe he is not able to fulfill those basic requirements. So, quickly judgment is made and a preliminary kind of a selection is done in this particular step. Step 2 are the selection tests. Now, these are very sound and intense mechanism that is used to measure certain characteristics of individuals with respect to their aptitudes, with respect to their manual dexterity, with respect to their intelligence, with respect to their personality. Now, if we see, all these criteria are very important when you are looking at any employee in any organization, be it the capacity to perform the task, be it the ability to understand what the job requires you to do. Also, at certain point of time, even maintaining interpersonal relationships also is very important. So, all these tests will somewhere give in kind of an insight to the employer whether that person has the capacity to be able to join the organization. We will be studying the various tests that are used in the coming sections. Once the employee passes the test, either in terms of quantitative assessments or qualitative assessments, the next step will be the employment interview. Now this is the place wherein the hierarchy levels are they now come into contact with each other. That means they're the superior, not only the immediate superior, but all those people who are concerned with the task, they then come in touch with the person or the employee, and there is a one-to-one in-depth conversation that occurs, so that the employee is properly evaluated and his suitability is checked in order to ensure that he has the capacity to perform the task. The next step is the reference and background checks. Here the name, address and telephone numbers of references are generally taken, and whatever the information that has been provided by the employee is verified, and in case any additional information is also required, that also is taken care of. Now, who are those references? Generally these are previous employers, some known people, teachers, university professors, or all those people who have closely worked with the person at a professional level. So somewhere they know the professional behavior of the employee, which will be suitable for the better understanding of the employee by the management. The next step is the selection decision, where the final decision is taken with inputs from the concerned manager. Who is the concerned manager? The one who is directly in contact or the immediate superior of the employee. Now, obviously, this is an outcome of whatever has happened in the previous steps before, be it in terms of the assessment that is being done in the through the test, or in terms of the interview that was conducted on a one-to-one basis. So, and after, of course, the reference and background checks, all these things are then taken into consideration, and the decision is made from the management's point of view whether that person is selected or rejected. The next step is, of course, the medical examination, where a medical fitness test is conducted before the job is being offered to the employee. Now this step is also important because not only with respect to the physical health, but also with respect to the mental health, it has to be checked whether the employee is in a condition, or at this stage I will not even call the employee, maybe the applicant is in the condition to be able to cope up with the requirement of the organization. So this is very important. Then you have the job offer, which is made through the letter of appointment. Generally it contains a date by which the appointee must report on duty. Now the job offer, why do we call it a job offer? Because the entire process of a staffing is not bonded labor. It is not, you cannot force anybody to be a part of your organization. You have to offer. Now till that particular time, the management was screening, and also at the same time, if you look from the other point of view, from the applicant's point of view, he is also trying to understand what is expected out of him. So at this particular time when the offer is being made, he is still in a position to be able to accept it, or he himself would not want to join. There might be n number of reasons. So at this particular time an offer is being made, that means a proposal is being given from the organization to the applicant, saying all the details that is being given. Now it has whatever the conditions and the prerequisites are there, it's already mentioned in that job offer. After the job is accepted by the applicant officially, then there is a contract of employment. Now contract of employment includes a list of documents in the form of attestation forms, which include the vital details about the candidate, authenticated and attested by him or her. The contract of employee varies according to the level of job, and also it specifies the job title, the duties, responsibilities, date of starting of employment, rate of pay, allowances, hours of work, leave rules, sickness, grievance procedure, disciplinary procedure, work rules, termination of employment. All these are mentioned in that bunch of papers, or what we call as the contract. So once that contract is accepted by the applicant, now he officially becomes the employee of the organization. Let us now see some of the important tests that are used for the process of selection. You have the intelligence test, wherein the psychological form of assessment is used to measure the level of intelligence quotient or the IQ of any individual. It is the indicator of learning and decision making ability. That means there is certain basic IQ that is required to perform a certain task. Now obviously that IQ has already been established, and here in this particular test they will see how close to that IQ that has been established the applicant has. Then you have the aptitude test, which will measure the ability of the person to learn new skills. Aptitude basically means the ability or the manner in which a person will understand the circumstance and react to it. So somewhere that aptitude is very important. It of course it indicates the person's capacity to develop himself and the desire to grow professionally. There are personality tests which will give a clue to the person's emotions, reactions, maturity and value system. Now this personality is very important because when we talk about any organization, the organization does not consist, or it is not made up of individuals. It is made up of team. It is only and only the result of team effort that will lead to the success of the organization. So how a person will perform as a team member is very important, and this can be understood through the personality test. And of course these kind of tests are very difficult to design and implement, but nonetheless, as and when the team becomes more and more crucial, or the performance of the team is more and more crucial, automatically these tests will gain more and more importance. There are trait tests which measure the existing skills of the individual and measure the level of knowledge and proficiency in the profession or technical training, because with respect to the task that is being performed, it should be checked how, again when we talk about physical dexterity, how you have the physical capacity to perform that task is checked through the trait test. Now the difference between aptitude test and trait test is that the former measures the potential to acquire skills, and the latter will already check the skills that are already possessed in the individual. So this is very important. So you should be able to learn new things, grasp new things, that is through the aptitude test, and you should also be able to provide to the job, or you should be able to perform the job with your previous understanding. So this is the difference that you should know. Another is the interest test, which will help to know the pattern of interest or involvement of a person. Now this is very important because even if you want to see the future prospects of an individual, this interest, where does he have those innate interests, is very important from the organizational point of view, so that it could be molded and could be used for the development of the organization. Off the job method of training is working away from the actual workplace and learning before doing. That is, even before you are doing the actual task, you are getting trained to perform the task to the best of its capacity. Now wherever there are areas which require proper knowledge before you are able to perform the task, be it complex machinery, or when you are having a detailed program that has to be followed, or you are having a lot of steps for in a particular task, then for all these things, off the job methods are very good. Some of the methods include classroom lectures or conferences. Here specific information, rules, procedures or methods are conveyed to the trainees either through the use of audio visuals or demo. This actually makes the entire ambience very interesting, further which will lead to increase in the retention and clarification. This is also very helpful when you have a set of people who have to understand or who have to be provided with the same kind of technical knowledge. So classroom lectures and conferences are very useful. Next, we have films which provide information and clearly demonstrate skills. And of course, these are more effective when they are used along with the conference discussions. You have short films. Either it could be animated in nature to increase the interest of the viewer, or it could be somebody else who is actually performing the task. So somewhere the films, and again, the best part about having a films is you can have many reruns so that you can minutely identify what is happening at each level. Then there are case studies which are taken from actual experiences of the organizations. Now these are described as accurately as possible, and the problems which are faced by the managers at that particular time are discussed in detail. Once the cases have been provided to the trainees, they study them thoroughly, they determine the problems, they analyze the causes and develop alternative solutions, they select the best solution and implement it. So here they would be understanding real-time situations that the organization has actually faced previously, so that they could provide their input and what the outcome would have been. Computer modeling is a programmed kind of methodology to imitate some of the realities of the job. And here the learning happens without the risk or cost of making mistakes in real life situation. When the job is complex in nature and when you can have a technical kind of requirement to perform the task, then you can actually create 3D images and models on the computer, and then you can understand it at a better pace and at a bigger overview. There might be cases when actually the machinery is huge. So what basically these computer models do is they will make it small in nature, of course, and it will be a 3D image, and those images can be closely observed, studied, and then it is easier to actually start working on the actual machinery. Vestibule training is when the employees learn on the equipment they use but away from work. The actual work environment is created in classrooms and the employees use same materials, files and equipment. This is basically useful when sophisticated machinery and equipment has to be handled. Now some kind of simulation is done so that they know that physically what they have to contact with when they are actually performing the task. So vestibule training is some kind of a shorter version of the actual task that has to be performed. Then there are programmed instructions where the entire information is broken into meaningful units. These units are then arranged in logical and sequential manner from simple to complex. Now the trainee goes through these units by answering questions or filling the blanks. They are programmed instructions wherein the entire tasks are broken down. You have a step 1, step 2, step 3 and so on. Step 1 being the most simple, and then further on it will become more and more complex. So once the trainee is able to identify the first step, once he clears that, then he moves on to the second step. Then he moves on to the third. So slowly and gradually they are able to understand the entire task. In conclusion, we can say that staffing, when done thoroughly and with minute details kept in mind, then it will build the force or the human element in an organization, which will definitely take the organization towards its goals and objectives.